Hello there, everybody, and welcome to our Andor episode 6 predictions and speculation. We are going to be talking about what we think will happen in next week's episode of Andor. If you haven't checked out a review of episode 5, it dropped on Wednesday mornings. We always do our latest reviews on the morning the episodes come out, so check out our reviews for the show so far. But in this video, we are talking about everything that's probably going to happen next episode. We're kind of on the right track with our episode 5 predictions, but I think we were a little accelerated in the show's timeline. But before we get started on our predictions, please hit that like button down below and comment below. Let us know what you think will happen in Andor episode 6. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. We're on the march to 1,000 subs. It'll really help us out if you subscribe and help us interact with more Star Wars fans. Subscriptions are really the best way to show that you like our content, so we can continue to keep providing you with great Star Wars content here in the future. So check out all of our videos on our channel and subscribe. So now let's get into episode 6 predictions speculations. If you watched our episode 5 predictions and speculations, we'll try not to be too redundant here, because if you saw our review for episode 5 of Andor and you watched the episode, not much happened. It was a much slower episode. It was a lot more dialogue heavy. There's a lot of character moments. There's a lot of us getting used to and learning more about the Aldhani crew before what we probably think will happen to them next episode, which is a plan that, despite its best efforts, will most likely go wrong. In this episode 5, we learned that this group likes to put on the face that they have this precise plan that's been really well executed for the last however long they've been on there, 6 months or something like that. They've been planning this, and Cassian knows more about the Imperial side than they do, and he just showed up the other day. So I doubt this goes well for this group. Any first thoughts on what's going to happen next week in episode 6?
Well, I think we're obviously going to get some of the Aldanians to their temple just outside this little bunker garrison sort of thing. Supply depot. And it was mentioned the previous year was 100. Now it's going to be more like 25 to 50. Or maybe this will be like one of those situations where we get like, for some reason, like 1,000 of them, right? For some reason, they've like the skies are even more illustrious than usual or whatever, and that maybe brings added attention that the crew wasn't expecting, that starts making them change their plans little by little until it's unrecognizable and they're unsure what to do. I thought it was pretty telling that Cassian mentions like it's a custom job on like the weight thing, and when you're on the rails and lifting up and away, you can tell them like, sure, it was your idea for me to fly it, but like you guys clearly don't know what you're doing here. I could totally see something like that not being exact. There is a Coruscant engineer coming, which is interesting to me because I don't want to say Galen Erso. I feel like at this point he's already fully invested in uh, everything with the Death Star hidden away. So probably not him. And we already just gotten a little bit of the scare information in the last episode, in episode 4, where people in the ISB and other agencies know about it, what's like about Scarif, like how there's more regulations and all this and that, but they don't know what's happening there. So I don't think it'll be someone entirely noteworthy. But again, this plan will continue to change. Stuff will go wrong. I I think there was a very interesting path that they took Gorn with. Like, yes, they explain why he, is defecting, why he's helping this crew, but he doesn't really have like this animosity towards anyone he's worked with. Like, yeah, they say some things that are casually imperial, pro-fascist, and stuff like that. But there's also like those guys in the crew who are supposed to paint the walls. They're like, it sucks being out here. We're trying to raise the morale. We think the boys would be better if they could enjoy the one thing that's good about this place. So it's very interesting that, like, yeah, I think he's gonna go with the plan, but I don't know. I feel like he could also end up just being the weakest link. I could see him make a mistake, say something that he's not supposed to because he's susceptible. And if he's not making that mistake, maybe he just doesn't like go with the plan all the way. I think right now it's how unprepared these rebels are in some ways the possibility of like their only hope, like just realizing like, yeah, what else is there for me other than just life with my soldiers? Like that could be something really interesting to see. Regardless, I think he'd be the first domino to fall, and if he falls, that totally destroys the entire plan and everything once they're inside. Then everyone gets picked off one by one. Yeah, I don't really see anyone surviving. We know that Vel and the other girl are outside and supposed to meet up with them later. Maybe they get shot down or killed. I don't know. I just what I'm thinking though is they're gonna require Luthen's help, and they might not necessarily be able to reach out to him. But I feel like his anxiety at the end of the episode, I was like, God, like I just want to see if I can contact him. I don't know if it's his wife or like the person who works in the shop. Seems like some sort of relationship. She's like, yeah, it'll be done at this point tomorrow. Like, there's nothing you can do. And I don't know. I feel like he's losing it because he's like, I got sloppy with Cassie. And I feel like he'll actually be so committed that he might just burst through when they really need him and do that chaotic laser spin on his ships and everything. But what does that do for his plans and like his image, and like will he get attention drawn? This is something that, yeah, I think a lot of Aldanian rebels will die, but I think the consequences for Luthen and Cassian's relationship is actually going to be the bigger impact moving forward. I think Dedra is going to make big moves on Blevin. I think that's going to happen, and I think it's going to come from Uncle Harlow, who's maybe the major in charge of the ISB. Could be him, but regardless, I think she's going to get Cyril, and Cyril's going to be like her protege and have connections with Ferrix and maybe reveal something that he doesn't understand that maybe she can connect into her little web. I see that being like a partnership be formed there. Mon Mothma, I think we need to have some sort of dinner scene or something where she's putting her act on, and maybe some stuff with Luthen at another visit. But yeah, I'm that part of the story I'm not too sure about. But I think the Cyril, Dedra, Blevin dynamic is, and Harlow, whoever he is, that's a big thing that's going to happen outside of the Aldanian rebels. But then the Aldanian rebels thing is going to be big for Luthen and Cassian more so than these supposed goners.
I'm on the same page with you where I think Goran is his name, right? I think he is going to object to the necessary killing that is going to be required for them to ultimately complete this heist. I think, it's one of those things where you're blinded by the hatred of the institution, but the people within it, you don't, you consider friends or family. And then when it comes to like an us versus them type scenario, and he's caught in between, I could see him, getting involved to the point where maybe the rebels accidentally have to kill him. Cassian has, no loyalty to any of these people. And I think he could be, although we know that he's a little bit more stable than maybe the rest of the group thinks, I think he could be the loose cannon here to where he, it's going to end up being his neck on the line again, like he said throughout this whole show. And what will he do to ultimately complete the mission that gets him out of there and back to Luthen for supposed freedom? I think that's going to be the most interesting thing with that group. I do think the rest of the group is going to die. I think ultimately it will be him and the leader, and it will be the two of them going, and it will kind of be like a clash between them as they get towards Luthen. I think most of the rest of the group will go down kind of Rogue One-esque, one at a time, as they get closer and closer to achieving their goal. And I think what we're building towards with this, and it would be the halfway point at the end of next episode through this season, is the dominoes. Or the dominoes are falling, and we're going to see, maybe not the full onslaught of what an explosion of rebellion looks like, probably towards the end of the season on all aspects of the Empire, from politics to actual violence to, militia, and all the different forms of rebellion, all the different pockets that are out there that ultimately we see united in rebels. But I think this will kickstart the domino of, this is going to go poorly enough that Luthen is called into action. What Luthen does and his involvement and maybe his possible reveal to to other Imperials that he is involved, or at least the scent of his involvement will springboard the ISB into needing to do what they do. I think Cassian's, rumored reemergence will bring Cyril back into the fold. And then ultimately what the fallout from all of that will cause problems in the Senate, which will spring Mon Mothma into action. I think it's just going to be an avalanche in this episode that will start the events towards the ultimate explosion. And I think that's what this show has done a great job of. And we talked about in hindsight in episode 5, I think we are going to look back on it as maybe not an essential episode, but one that effectively continues that anticipation towards the ultimate explosion of the rebellion. And episode 6, I think, will be that checkpoint, I should say, in the middle of the season that we're going, okay, now you're starting to hook us, and we're starting to see the outline of what's going to be coming here in the future. And with that comes, I think, Mon Mothma's role will probably be the smallest in the next episode, but I think we'll start to see the effects of maybe her learning about either Luthen's involvement in this plan, or either something being directly brought to the Senate about what's going on Aldhani. If it becomes a big news story, and it becomes like the first real glimpse of rebellion that a lot of these people have seen, and it's talked about in the Senate, maybe we actually get to see some of those discussions, probably in episode 7, I would guess. But yeah, I'm excited for the possibility of all these things starting to fall into place. I think that's fun when you're watching a show like this or reading a novel, so doing something with a longer format. It's fun to start to see all the threads that feel like they're ancillaries start to all come together and ultimately make a big package. So I think that's what we can hope for with a good episode 6.
Absolutely. And I feel like the big thing about episode 5, what we kind of pointed in our review, is that, it's a lot about the character traits of the other Aldanian rebels. And then Cassian reveals like the one truth, that he got hired, right? After Skeen and him have this contentious relationship. But I feel like this could be the return of flashbacks in this episode, with the clone troopers, and we get to see maybe like the death of Cassie's adopted father, and we get to see like what makes him tick, like what he can fully be, like why he becomes this like cold, ruthless killer, sniper agent, everything that Luthen sees him as. Because right now, like, he's totally talented in espionage and all these things, but it's like, why bother? Like, come on, like, this is a guy who probably spent the last like 10 years screwing around on Ferrix, owing so much money, as we've seen on and off again with Bix. Like, he kind of threw away whatever burned inside him at some point, I think. And what parts of the story is of like, is he actually sent to these like juvies and all these other things like jail and all that? Like, is it because those are the few times that like he feels truly alive and he does something, or is it just because he's become a deadbeat? And I think this next episode and the consequences of everything just falling apart and all that will maybe show him in like that beginning of Rogue One introduction form, like as close as possible as we could for this time period, without like the true focus of like further rebellion. It could just be like, this is who he can be if anyone asked him to be, like if anyone could trigger those parts in him. I think we're going to see a lot of psychology from him. I could totally see the flashbacks be saved, but regardless, Cassian comes out of this different. And I think that's probably the thing that we have to look forward to the most. And we have the action and all that for sure. That's going to happen. But I think we're going to see a Cassian who's not just looking for his sister or, trying to get away. Like, we'll see him as like what Luthen wants him to be. And we're going to see like the consequences that Luthen realizes that comes from saving this precious asset, even if he is exactly what he wants him to be. And like you said, if this depot is raided successfully in some way or another, then we might see like the Moffs or something start to be pushed a little bit more, the regional governors and the Senate politics there with Mon Mothma. The avalanche will start to begin. I don't know if it's the full thing yet, but I think it all comes down to just Cassian just snapping into who he truly can be, like the psychotic monster underneath.
Yeah, and I think we keep getting hinted at that, throughout these last 2 episodes, the fact that nobody trusts him, and they're playing off of it a little bit. The fact that we all trust him the most as not only the title character, but also the only character in this crew that we're familiar with. But I could see them subverting, how we feel about Cassian, because this show really wants to dive into who he is. And like you said, he's at the beginning of Rogue One, he is very hardcore rebel and not just fully believing in the rebellion's cause, but literally willing to do anything, and talks about how many people he's killed in the name of the rebellion, how many terrible things he's done in the name of the rebellion. Seeing that start to unfold here would be, nice. Even if it's in his head, like, retroactively, he's like, oh, I did it for the rebellion. But really, in this, I think he's mostly going to do it to save himself in this episode. Flashbacks would be interesting. I'd like to see the Clone Wars stuff as soon as possible, but I also think that that's going to be a lot to have in this episode. So, but I think by 7 at the latest is when we're going to get more flashbacks, because that's kind of the start of the second half of the season. I really think that this season seems to be kind of structured in a 2-part way, almost in terms of tone and narrative progression, speed of narrative progression. I think episode 7 would be my prediction for the flashbacks returning, as with a little older Cassian, a parallel to more of the direction he's headed for the second half of the season. But let us know what you think of what's going to happen in episode 6 of Andor down below. We want to hear your thoughts. We always respond to you guys in the comments. So let us know your thoughts down below. If you haven't yet, please like the video. It really helps us out with the algorithm, helps us interact with more Star Wars fans like yourselves who want to talk about Andor, and subscribe to our channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subs, like I've said at the beginning, and all your subscriptions matter. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please do so. It'll really help us out. It's the only way truly to show us that you like our content and that you want to see more of it. And we would love to continue to give more, and subscriptions would really be the best way to help us out with that. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.